You didn't listen to us. Now suffer the consequences. We are Mayhem, and you are dead.
Now for a lesson. You may have heard these words before, but I'll teach you what they really mean. Go beyond! Plus!
Everyone, prepare for absolute mayhem. You guys are not ready. Hey, what's up everyone? James here. We are back with Transformers, Wreckers, Tread, and Circuits. Now, these are the last two issues in the mini-series we will be covering. If you didn't watch my previous video covering the first two, click the card right here. With that being said, let's wreck and rule. So the issue opens where we left off with the Speedia 500 underway. Hotshot asks Thunderclash permission to go all out. Dragstrip interrupts, making fun of Hotshot for asking for permission. A quick note about Dragstrip here, he first appeared in the OG Transformers cartoon. He's pretty cool. He's a part of the Decepticon Kings of the Road, the Stunticons. They can combine and form Menasor, who looks like an evil car version of Voltron. And for those of you following the Transformers Phase 1 playlist, we actually saw Dragstrip with one of his Stunticon brothers Dead End and Megatron's origin in the battle against Sentinel Prime. Thunderclash gives the Wreckers permission to go all out, but warns them to keep their optics open and says, show these racers what it means to wreck and rule. The race really begins to heat up here. The racers are coming around the second bend. We have Override in the lead, Knockout isn't too far behind, and Ricochet and Hotshot are neck and neck with Dragstrip. The commentator mentions that Knockout is the favored racer of the Ascenticon party. I'm going to go on a quick tangent here and explain who the Ascenticons are because it's crucial to this story. So for those of you not following IDW's 2019 Transformer continuity, this faction was founded by the bot Termagax, a super accomplished bot. She is a scientist, philosopher, engineer, teacher, and historian. You guys know the saying, jack of all trades, master of none, except Termagax is a jack of all trades and she's master of all. So after the threefold Spark War, Nominus Prime created a piece of legislation called the Nominus Edict. Its purpose was to create security and stability on Cybertron, basically to prepare Cybertron for another war should one occur. Although it did help Cybertron recover from the war, the major problem with it is that it kept Cybertron from expanding and the people in fear. They destroyed or sealed away weapons, stopped expansion, which meant no more colonies, so they wouldn't antagonize any other life forms, hoarded Energon, so they never faced a shortage again, and most importantly, they only forged new Transformers when the Senate deemed it necessary. It completely stopped Cybertron's growth and had the people living in wartime when the war was over. Termagax wanted to end this by introducing change with the Ascenticon movement, but her words fell on deaf ears when it came to the Senate, so she left society and ended up living alone in the wilderness. She was like, I'm done. She entrusted the Ascenticon faction to her protege, Megatron. Sorry to go on such a long tangent, but it's important. Now, back to the story. As the racers are coming off the second bend, they drive right into a mayhem ambush. Skullgrin activates an explosive charge on the ridge, creating a sudden rock slide that forces the racers to slow down and quickly maneuver out of the way. It blocks part of the track and allows Axer to enter the race. First on his hit list of racers to take out is Road Pig here. He uses his baton to shoot an Energon net that entangles Road Pig's front wheel, causing him to lose control and fly off the track straight into Octopunch, who slices him in half. Octopunch turns to the camera drone and says, you didn't listen to us. Now suffer the consequences. We are Mayhem and you are dead. Mayhem proves they are no joke. At the finish line, they lose the camera feed. Breakdown orders the spectators to evacuate. As Breakdown tries to speak to the racers directly by using the emergency broadcast system, his comms suddenly become unresponsive, having been hacked by Mayhem. Ricochet, Hotshot, and Dragstrip come across the blocked track. Dragstrip quickly drifts around it. For at least one of them to still be in the race and catch up to Dragstrip, Hotshot launches Ricochet over the rock slide. However, this brilliant move gets interrupted by a missile barrage from more Mayhem agents, Slugslinger and Thunderblast. Luckily for Ricochet, they miss him, but when they come for a second bombing run, they take out Hotshot. As they both debate whether to finish him off or not, Slugslinger brags about how it was easy and asks where the real fight is. Suddenly, he's rammed by Aileron answering right here, knocking Thunderblast off of Slugslinger. Once Thunderblast lands on the track, Thunderclash rams right into her, into the rock slide, clearing the track like a straight savage. And it doesn't end there. The other racers follow behind, trampling Thunderblast. Octopunch and Skullgrin appear on the track and start taking out some of the racers. We then get an all-out brawl, and Thunderclash begins to battle with Octopunch. Thunderblast, having survived the trample, aims her rocket launcher at Thunderclash, but Leadfoot intervenes, knocking her out. As Ricochet helps Hotshot up, Aileron comes flying in and grabs Hotshot, taking him into the air. She tells him she plans to drop him on top of Slugslinger because she realizes he's a distance fighter. One-on-one, he's easy work. So she flies above Slugslinger and drops Hotshot. The initial shock on his face is great, but when the camera drone comes into his view, he says, "Wreck and rule," and smashes Slugslinger. At the same time, Ricochet is helping wounded racers. Thunderclash and Leadfoot team up. We see Thunderclash riding Leadfoot as a skateboard in order to catch up to the rest of Mayhem in the race. Once they catch up, Thunderclash uses the other racers as stepping stones in order to get closer to Axer and Submarauder. He ends up overshooting one of the jumps, and just as he's about to eat crap, he's saved by this bot named Lickety Split, who I forgot to mention was the waitress who passed along information to Aileron in the last video. And a fun fact, she first appeared in the Transformers animated series. Shout out to Guardian of Light for pointing that out. Axer takes notice of Thunderclash closing in on him, so he and Submarauder just go nuts, taking out as many racers as possible. Axer tells Knockout that he's next. Thunderclash is able to stop at least Submarauder and begins to battle with him. But suddenly, their fight is interrupted by the arrival of Sec Ops. Even though Thunderclash tells them Submarauder is a Mayhem agent, they don't believe him. Submarauder uses the confusion to slip out of his outer shell and escape. Now, if any of you are confused about how he can do that, Submarauder is a Transformer pretender. They're a breed that wears special external armor shells. It was a way for the Transformers to take their disguise ability to the next level when operating on other worlds. So as Sec Ops has the other racers in custody, Knockout is getting closer to the finish line, but Axer is hot on his tail. Axer tells Knockout how he makes him sick because he's just using the Ascenticons for his own gain, which will make sense later, that's all I'm gonna say. Axer continues telling Knockout that he's just like the bots who discriminate against mode-locked bots like him, that he doesn't care about them or the people of Velocitron, he only cares about winning. Knockout replies, "You're right, I only care about winning, and you're stopping me from doing that, so goodbye." Out of nowhere, a rocket annihilates Axer, just shadow realms him. The person who fired the rocket was Knockout's lover, Breakdown. Knockout ends up winning the Speedia 500, becoming the first senator. Later at the finish line, Minerva approaches the Wreckers, asking if the mission was successful. Aileron and Hotshot answer that Mayhem got away when Sec Ops came busting in. It allowed them to escape. Thunderclash says, "Wreckers, we failed. I don't know if we'll get another chance." So this leads us right into the finale. This ending is crazy. You guys are not ready for the twist. Alright, so part 4 opens 3 cycles after the Speedia 500. We go to Velocitron's Senate building for the swearing in of Knockout as Velocitron's first senator. We see the Wreckers hiding in the crowd, watching every access point. They're sure that Mayhem will strike again. Someone taps Thunderclash from behind, and he quickly turns around ready for a fight, but it's just Leadfoot. Thunderclash apologizes, mentioning he's still on edge from Mayhem's last attack. Once they're all inside the Senate building, Hotshot asks Aileron what if Mayhem never shows up. Ricochet chimes in, joking, but low-key serious, that they will go on a long-needed vacation if they don't. Leadfoot tells Thunderclash that if he ever needs anything to contact him. He then walks in on Aileron ripping into Ricochet for his vacation comment, making it clear that even if Mayhem doesn't show up today, they will eventually be back. Thunderclash nips this in the bud when he says, Mayhem can run and hide, but they won't get away. We're Wreckers, and there are no vacations. Ricochet apologizes, however Aileron begins to wonder if maybe the Wreckers should end. They've done this for so long, taking on missions that no one can know about, and it's been hard on all of them. Aileron suggests canceling their stunt show because they've been compromised. The Speedia 500's cameras may not have seen them jump into action during the race, but all the racers did, and rumors will begin to spread. Their discussion gets interrupted when the swearing-in ceremony begins, when Emirate Zaron takes the stage and introduces Knockout. After Knockout comes up to the podium and begins his acceptance speech, Minerva notices Submarauder in the crowd and informs the Wreckers as she begins to follow him. Now, as that's going on, I want to focus on Knockout's speech because it's very enlightening. He tells the people of Velocitron that in these unprecedented times, Velocitron needs to change and adapt. Though he kind of denounces Mayhem for their actions, he does say they were right about one thing. They were right about Velocitron only caring about spectacle and entertainment, not the common bot's voice. He initially wants to say the Ascenticons will change that, but then changes it to I will change that. That Velocitron will have a better era, and basically declares that Velocitron will secede from Cybertron when he says we are not Cybertron anymore. We are our own world with our own needs. Submarauder finds a position and locks onto Knockout. Minerva leaps in and tries to wrestle the harpoon gun away, but it still manages to go off and lands right into the chest of Knockout. Submarauder begins to escape and Minerva chases after him. But Submarauder's next move is genius. He slips out of his outer shell into the panicked crowd and uses his outer shell as a bomb. The explosion sends Minerva flying back and creates even more chaos within the Senate building. The civilians try to escape, but discover that the exits are sealed and won't open. Thunderclash, seeing this, charges toward one of the sealed doors, slamming right into Skullgrin, who tackles him and signals to the other Mayhem agents to attack. Suddenly, the sealed door Hotshot and Ricochet were trying to open explodes in front of them, knocking them back. Slugslinger and Thunderblast walk through, ready to kill all the politicians, with none of the Wreckers to stop them. However, Leadfoot rallies his fellow racers to attack the Mayhem agents. I like that Lickety Split yells charge. The racers ram into Slugslinger and Thunderblast. While that's happening, Aileron checks in on the wounded Knockout, mentioning that SecOps isn't around for the crisis. Suddenly, Octopunch's claws come bursting out of the building floor, grabbing Knockout's body and pulling him. Aileron stops Octopunch by pulling out her blaster she snuck in and shoots him. Meanwhile, Thunderclash is wrestling with Skullgrin. Thunderclash takes him out quick, fast, and in a hurry, smashing his face into the ground. Hotshot and Ricochet find themselves in the crosshairs of Thunderblast and Slugslinger, who ask them if they have any last words. However, Hotshot and Ricochet pull off a slick double team move and take out the Mayhem duo. The Wreckers successfully defeat Mayhem. We then see Knockout survived Mayhem's assassination attempt. Breakdown then appears, and after checking in on Knockout, confronts the Wreckers, asking them what game they are playing, because they found Minerva at the site of the explosion with the attempted murder weapon. We then see Minerva being escorted by someone familiar with two other bots. A few cycles later, we see the Wreckers aboard the Stuntmaster, leaving Velocitron and being forced to leave Minerva so they can avoid more scrutiny. Thunderclash feels guilty over this, but is hopeful SecOps will expedite her release, since Knockout assured him he would put in a good word for her. The Wreckers then begin broadcasting, announcing to their fans that this will be the final broadcast for now, using the cover story that the events of the Speedia 500 were too much for them and they need privacy and time to process it. The team then signs off with one last wreck and rule. After they end the broadcast, we see Circuit, still wounded, using the last of his energy to help the Wreckers broadcast one last time until his spark finally goes out. Afterward, the Wreckers hold a funeral and send the pod holding Circuit's body into deep space. Later, Hotshot wonders if this is the end of the Wreckers, and Ricochet and Aileron believe it is because they've already lost two Wreckers, and the show won't work as a cover story anymore. However, Thunderclash insists the Wreckers are still needed and refers to Knockout's speech, mentioning that there is trouble brewing on Cybertron. Aileron points out that there is no functional space bridge nearby, and they're a megacycle away from Cybertron, so navigating there isn't an option either. Thunderclash brings up the idea of using their communications array to contact bots who can help them find a functional space bridge and recruit these bots to the Wreckers. He informs the team that he put out a call to the bravest and most loyal bots in the universe with a simple message: wreck and rule. On the view screens, we see a lot of noticeable faces besides Leadfoot. We see the twins Rack and Ruin, Iron Fist, Star Drive, Star Saber, who's beyond badass, and Lockdown. The Wreckers are looking at some heavy hitters. Sometime later, we go to Velocitron, where the big twist in this story occurs. Minerva has discovered the horrible truth. Knockout and the Ascenticons, who are now the Decepticons, were the ones who were behind the entire Mayhem threat. A huge ploy to ensure one of Megatron's followers was put in power. Skyquake announces that Minerva has been found guilty of the attempted assassination of Knockout thanks to Octopunch's testimony, and her punishment will be indefinite stasis. So says the first senator, "We are Mayhem. Long live the Decepticons." And Knockout says, "Long live Knockout." And that is the end of Transformers, Wreckers, Tread and Circuits. This story was a lot better than I expected, and it has such a great twist at the end. Unfortunately, we'll probably be forever left on this cliffhanger. Well, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you are new here, and if you like Transformers, check out one of my playlists right here. Other than that, have a fantastic day, take care, and always remember, every day, to transform and go beyond. See you later, Beyonders.